I don't know. I stole it from my roommate. Yeah, because my mom has horrible What's up, movie buffs? I'm Jeremy, and movies are terrible. And I hope you're having a fantastic Saturday morning so far, or actually whatever time you're watching this. I hope it's good for you. This is a special Saturday stream, not the normal thing, but when I get an opportunity to do it, I'm always happy to. On this particular episode, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into the world of horror. Before we do get started, I wanted to say a quick shout out to everybody that is joining us in the live chat right now. We got King of the Hills 34, Mick Lovin, Brad Feddick, Patrick McCabe, Smiley coming in with the hot takes early this morning. Let's see who else. Kenji Ken, what's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast. I don't know if this is your first time being here, but it's always nice to see new faces. I apologize right off the bat for the fan. It's an essential thing today. It is so hot in Florida, so I got the fan going. If you can hear it a little bit, that's what that is about. And also, congratulations, Brad Feddick. I see that your wife is in labor. I actually saw that you put it that you're in labor, and I am deeply offended by that. Your wife is in labor, and you're just along for the ride, dude. Ooh, I'm on the wrong camera. What's going on here? Let's try this again. Whoops. That's that one shot that we like, baby. So anyways, I've got a special guest joining me on the line. I'm about to introduce him to you. What's up, Derek Benson? This is a gentleman that you may be familiar with if you've been keeping up with the podcast for any substantial amount of time. He is also the host of Let's Go Pensacola, which you can find on 1620 AM and 93.3 FM every Saturday at 4 p.m. and then available afterwards anywhere podcasts are making their homes. Ladies and gentlemen, and mostly gentlemen, say what's up to my guest, Julio Diaz. What's up, buddy?
Hey, good morning. Hey, I'm going to need to see some ID on McLovin.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. There's got to be a Hawaii driver's license. Come on.
Produce the driver's license, McLovin. You heard it. So, Julio and I do regularly collaborate, and as I said, you can find that on the radio show. It's always a pleasure to be able to do it over on Let's Go Pensacola, which is the name of the show. We talk about the week's pop culture headlines, everything from recapping the week's Marvel shows to talking about trailers that may have been released to just anything you can think of that's going on in the world of pop culture. We discuss it. Julio, because I never really give people an opportunity to introduce themselves, and I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you, but tell the folks a little bit about how you got involved in this space and when you started doing radio, all that kind of good stuff.
That's a good question. I mean, when I started doing radio, technically college, because I did a little bit of college radio, but I've been doing various things on news radio and or Cat Country, which are sister stations, for more than 10 years. Started when I was working at the Pensacola News Journal, and they'd have me on to talk about stuff that's going on in entertainment. I would end up either guesting or guest hosting on a lot of news radio shows for some time. And then for some time, I was also doing a radio show out of what was the Blaze. I think it's the Shark now, out of Fort Walton Beach. And we were doing Chris Wilkes and I were doing a music program.
Oh, really?
Yeah, called Sound Salvation, that was kind of a free form based around a theme every week. So we were doing that. We did that for about a year. But then they offered me a show on news radio. Started out doing a half hour, and it's now expanded to an hour, and we do it every week, 4:00 on News Radio 92.3 and AM 1620.
92.3. Apologies about that. I said 93.3. You'd think I'd know by now.
Yeah, you don't have to say it. I do.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. So that's 93.3. Any of you that are here in the area, if you want to check that out. Oh, yeah. Exactly that. The thing that I didn't say, 92.3, if you're here in the area, make sure to check that out. Come by and say what's up, man. We always love to hear from you guys.
You can also listen live on, if you have the TuneIn app and you search for WNRP, which is the station's call letters, you can listen live on that app at 4:00 Central Time any Saturday.
That's really good to hear. Yeah, that's good to know. So it's the TuneIn app?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, excellent, man. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
I think it's through the website, too, if I remember right.
Okay. And, yeah, you and I have known each other for a couple of years now, maybe 4 or 5 years. And we are both, nerds here in the Pensacola area. I use the term nerds kind of as a catch-all for people who are into indie fandom, whether it be that you're a nerd for video games, comic books, movies, all that kind of stuff. Music, even. I think you can be a nerd for music. And I think this show is kind of going to feature and focus on a little bit of our love of music and how that actually ties very closely to film, in particular in certain genres. The relationship between horror and heavy metal has been synonymous. I mean, ever since heavy metal started, you look at Black Sabbath, right? Like maybe the first of the proto-metal bands, and how heavily Ozzy was influenced by horror. And even the name Black Sabbath comes from the is it Mario Bava film, which is a Italian kind of gothic, maybe I wouldn't say it's a giallo film. Is there a subgenre that I'm overlooking, Julio?
Not that I could think of.
Okay, yeah. No. If there is, I'm not super familiar with it, but it's also a huge influence of Tim Burton, that film Black Sabbath. So it's kind of interesting. There's these center points, and then things kind of branch out from that. And we're going to explore a little bit of that later on in the show. That's going to be our topic. But as we always do, we're going to start off with what are we watching? What have we seen anything good in the past couple of days? We're going to switch gears and talk about some horror movie news, because you guys, if I've learned one thing over the past couple of days, it's that horror-related content is incredibly popular with my audience. I am just blown away by the 100 of you that decided to watch my Candyman video. But I am such a lover of horror. I am going to convert you people. It is my goal in life to turn you guys into devout horror disciples. And by the end of this podcast, yeah, you probably still aren't going to be, but eventually I'm going to wear you the fuck down, and you are going to be like, you know what my favorite thing is? Horror movies. And I'm gonna be like, yeah, job well done, Jeremy. So anyways, if you want to support this channel, which I always am super grateful to those of you that do that. What's up, Random Andy's channel? And I am Sam, and anybody else that joined the chat, Patrick McCabe. Let's see. So yeah, if you want to support the channel, there are multiple ways you can do that. You can join now. There's a little join button underneath the videos, which is a brand new thing that I've implemented, and essentially that allows you the opportunity to get exclusive badges, to get exclusive emojis, to be able to have your chats prioritized over in the live. So there's a couple different incentives. It's only $4.99 a month if that's something you're interested in. However, if you go to Patreon, I get a bigger cut of it. So check out Movies Are Terrible on Patreon and know that the money that you spend is actually going to end up in the creator's hand as opposed to YouTube, because let's be honest, they're profiting off of us enough as it is. Well, and by us, I just mean YouTube in general, not me. Nobody's profiting very much off me, which is okay. And then also you can support the channel through super chats. So if you do have any questions, topics, anything like that, you can drop those over in the live. And for merch, if you don't want to just give money away, but you want to represent Movies Are Terrible and kind of go out and spread the I don't want to say gospel. Let's say spread the good word about the Movies Are Terrible channel. I have a bunch of merch over there that you can check out, including a new Don't Be a Square shirt inspired by one of my favorite films, Pulp Fiction. So head over and check that out. Yeah, all sorts of ways to contribute to the growth of the channel. But being here is good enough for me. I really do appreciate all of you that stop by week after week to be a part of the conversation. So yeah, Julio, have you seen anything good over the past couple weeks? I know that you saw a movie for the movie club, so if you want to start there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if one of those special emojis you can get is a car emoji, because we've determined that's going to be the title of the next Fast and Furious.
We did determine that.
They keep going, Fast and the Furious, Fast 7, F9. So that title is just going to be a car emoji,
and it is so synonymous with the brand that people will know. They're like, "Oh, that's Furious 10 or whatever." That's a great idea. It's a great idea.
I did see that. It's completely preposterous, just absolutely insane, ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's no suspension of disbelief, because you can't believe anything that you're seeing at all. I mean, they drive a Pontiac Fiero into space. So, I mean, it's it's not even a matter, I was thinking about it because people accuse, comic book movies of being outlandish, and but there's like a certain kind of, there's like an internal reality within those movies, when those movies are done well, within, like, say, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when those movies are made well, there is an internal logic and rules within that world that kind of govern it, that help you suspend your disbelief. Yes. That there's guys around and shooting lasers out of their eyes or whatever. But there's none of that in the Fast and the Furious world. I mean, these movies started out, well, first of all, they started out with guys it was basically like kind of a Point Break ripoff with cars. It was, guys that like to drive fast that were stealing, literally, these movies have been around so long, they were stealing DVD players.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
And now they're all secret agents working for some, clandestine government agency to save the world in every episode. And they're literally like turning cars into submarines, or, like I said, flying into space in a car. And it's like, okay, no, you can't have both.
Yeah,
you either start out with the crazy world, or you're grounding this movie in supposedly what's a real world, but there's no reality to it anymore. What's completely ludicrous. But that being said, it's not bad. It's not, they're actually getting to where there's a little bit of knowing that they've gone a little too far, and they're actually just kind of making fun of themselves at this point. There's a bit where Tyrese Gibson's character Roman starts to wonder whether they're immortal or invulnerable, because they've been through all this and they don't have a scratch on them. And there's a lot of that in this movie. There's a lot of that things where people should be dead and they're not dead, including characters coming back from supposedly being dead. So,
there's been much conversation surrounding that, but I also know that in addition to you going and seeing F9, this is the first time. So Julio, in addition to hosting the radio show, he's the person that established the Pensacola Movie Club, which every Thursday night during the premiere of brand new movies, they'll go, several people, there's a Facebook group if you want to be a part of that, and they'll go check out different movies at the local theaters and kind of support the whole film community. And this is the first time that y'all have convened for quite a while. Do you even know what the last movie that you saw was?
I believe it was Emma, I believe, the
Anya Taylor-Joy
remake of the Jane Austen novel. So that was not a brand new release when we saw it. It was it had just come to Pensacola. It had been like because that was one of those like art house movies that took a little while to get here. So like I want to say the last national release we saw was Onward.
Okay.
The Pixar movie. which is, right now was the last Pixar film released in theaters.
In the theaters, yeah.
Because there's been 2 more since then, and they just put them straight out on Disney Plus.
Have you seen Luca yet?
I haven't seen Luca yet. I need to see Luca. I'm hearing good things. It's Pixar, so it unless it's got cars in it, it can't be that bad.
Yeah, like Fast and Furious.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll take any of the Fast and Furious movies over Cars too.
Yeah. Oh, easy. Easy choice. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, that's cool. I haven't watched a whole lot over the past few days. What is the last couple of movies that I watched? Oh, have you seen Russell Crowe in Unhinged?
No.
That movie is wild. It came out around this, the beginning of the pandemic, first couple months, and
yeah, that got a theatrical release.
It did. I believe, albeit limited, but it did, and it's what you think it is. It's a movie about a person that experiences road rage, but the extremes and the level to which it is taken in the movie it's impressive for how unabashedly like grindhouse and exploitation it is. It's got shocking violence in it, but I actually really enjoyed it.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I like that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of the grindhouse aesthetic, so maybe I need to check that out.
It's good, dude. And Russell Crowe is terrifying in it. If anybody has seen that movie, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section below.
Well,
go ahead.
Man, you put Russell Crowe in the right role, and he's good at that kind of. I mean, going back to Romper Stomper.
I hadn't seen that.
Oh, you haven't seen Romper Stomper?
Uh-uh.
Oh man, that's like one of his earliest movies, and it's kind of like the seminal skinhead movie.
Oh, really?
Like he's a skinhead in this, and he's pretty damn scary in that movie. He's even in the good, like even in a hero role. Like think about him in Gladiator, man. He's a beast in Gladiator.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's got a real masculine energy to him. He's not like one of these yoked dudes like even like Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt, The Rock, obviously, but like he's not one of those kind of big guys. But I still think he would rock people in a fight for some reason. He just seems tough, dude. I don't know.
Well, but he's so good when he plays against that too. Like if you look at The Good Guys, great flick, and he's it's kind of the antithesis of that character, but man, he's so good in that. I think Russell Crowe's kind of an underrated guy for somebody that's got an Oscar. He's kind of an underrated guy. He's got some range to him, but yeah, when he's in scary mode, he is scary.
So Random Andy's channel dropped a nice little bit of movie trivia in here for us. He says, movie fact, Charlie Chaplin's The Gold Rush was released 96 years ago today.
Wow.
Yeah. No idea.
I didn't see that theatrically.
No, yeah, I caught it.
I'm not.
Yeah, we see you, Andy. We see you talking about how old we are, dude. It's cool. No big deal. As we sit and talk about the radio and Pulp Fiction is what we were talking about right before we started recording. Oh, and speaking of Pulp Fiction, head over and check out the Diss Tract. He does a weekly watch along, and it was a lot of fun. I hung out with him last night so that we could watch Pulp Fiction. Did I already say all this? Did I already go through this spiel?
Not. We talked a little bit about Pulp Fiction before the show, but
okay.
Not on the.
Thank you. Yeah, so head over and check that out. It was a lot of fun. It's something that if you're a movie fan and you've got a couple of free hours on a Friday night and you're just looking for a means of hanging out and talking shop with people, I really think you will enjoy that. If I think about it, I'll put a link down in the description. If I don't, again, it's the Diss Tract. You can check it out. Just type in the Diss Tract channel and head over there, give it a watch, give him a subscription. The dude is doing really good work over there. In fact, he is part of the reason why my OBS has upgraded so substantially over the past couple of days, because I was able to hit him up and get some good information. So yeah, check out Nick over at the Diss Tract. Let's see. Wait a second. It looks like Brad had a baby. Is that right? Andy, wife, and I are at the hospital randomly checking my phone. She's like watching these streams with me. Yeah, congratulations, man. Congratulations. What an exciting moment. There's not too many of those in a lifetime.
So wait, do you have two separate people in this live that are having kids right now?
They're all popping out babies. It's the same guy.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say.
This podcast is for making babies, man, not having babies. This is what you put on in the background when you want to make sweet love to yourself. All right. Anyways,
All right.
I guess that's about it. I'm trying to think of the last horror movie that I watched. And I think I've mentioned it on the show before, but it's on Shudder. It's called Caveat. I believe it's Irish, and it's a psychological thriller that may or may not have actual supernatural elements in it. Is it all just like in the person's mind? I saw it the same week that I saw The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It, and it just reinforced why indie horror is so superior a lot of times to the big tentpole horror franchises. But do you know what the last horror movie that you watched was?
No, not well. I mean, it probably wasn't something recent. It was probably like either a rewatch or something I was catching up on. I want to say maybe Green Room, but there may have been something else after that. I'm not sure. But you mentioned Shudder. It's interesting that you say that because there was a movie that came to the U.S. via Shudder that just won the Peabody Award, which is like one of the most prestigious awards you could possibly win. That I'm not talking about The Curse of La Llorona. That was the Blumhouse theatrical movie that's a spinoff of the Conjuring universe, but the movie La Llorona, it's just called La Llorona, won the Peabody Award, which I mean is like I said, it's like one of the most prestigious awards you can win in entertainment. It means something is incredibly high quality and is recognized as incredibly high quality and has something to say beyond just like the genre that it's in or the medium, whatever. I don't know that I can't remember another horror movie winning that.
That's a really good point. And I've seen La Llorona, and it's very, very good. I kind of under the knowing that it was getting critical acclaim different places, I ended up sitting down and watching it. It took me like, I think 2 tries, but it's not because it was not good. It's just because I kept putting it on late, so I fell asleep the first time. And then when I watched it the second time, I was like, yeah, this movie's really good. So it is kind of cool, though, when horror movies kind of cross over into the world of being critical darlings, because even with, like, I always go back to Silence of the Lambs and how that is, this beloved horror film, but in my mind, I think that's a little bit of a stretch to call it horror. Not that all horror movies have to have supernatural shit, but
that's always a debate: is that a horror movie? I don't necessarily think it's a horror movie. I think it's a thriller that has some horrific elements to it.
Yeah, I would almost argue that if Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie, Pulp Fiction is a horror movie because of the pawn shop scene. That shit is so crazy.
Well, the pawn shop scene and the overdose scene too, for that matter.
Yeah, that's a good call.
There's a lot of EC Comics approved kind of horror, that kind of like Tales from the Crypt, shock suspense stories, kind of all of that kind of stuff is very influenced by those classic 50s horror comics.
Yes
in that movie. So yeah, I mean I'd agree. I don't necessarily think any of the Lecter stuff that I would necessarily classify as horror. I guess I can understand why some people do, but it's like there's like the 2 big movies that everybody always brings up that are like seen as all-time classic, not just within genre, but all-time classic films that you can argue back and forth about whether they're horror or not, is Silence of the Lambs and Jaws.
Great calls. Yeah, both great calls.
Horror films.
Yeah. I think that I was actually thinking of Jaws as well, but I agree. I did want to quickly say that I Am Sam brought up Hot Tension, and that movie is underrated and very, very good. Oh, yeah. He also said he loves Green Room, so that's cosign on that one right there. And then I saw somebody else bring up One Night in Soho, which is Edgar Wright's new film starring Anya Taylor-Joy, and I'm really excited about that. Julio, did you see the trailer for it?
I have seen the trailer for it. I'm down with anything Edgar Wright does. In fact, I'm going later today to see. He's got a new documentary out about the band Sparks called the Sparks Brothers, and I'm going to see that this afternoon.
Nice.
Super about that. Edgar Wright is one of my favorite directors. I am here for basically anything he does. So, yeah, One Night in Soho is like tops or maybe second on my list this year for my most anticipated movies. Yeah, it's that and The Suicide Squad are like neck and neck.
So Edgar, the new One Night in Soho is heavily influenced by, in my perspective, two different things. And this is just basically looking at the trailer and what I got out of it. Now, I don't know what Edgar Wright's actual intention were, but it looks very inspired by Italian giallo films from the 1970s, things by Dario Argento, and as I previously mentioned, Mario Bava, who did like Bay of Blood and a couple of other very iconic giallo films. But then it also more contemporary influence, maybe a little Nicholas Winding Refn.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Edgar Wright's obviously got deep roots in horror, among other genre stuff. I mean, first of all, you look at Shaun of the Dead, of course, but there's a fair amount of horror elements in Hot Fuzz and in The World's End.
Good
too.
point.
So, all three of the Cornetto trilogy. But then there's also the trailer that he did in Grindhouse. He did one of those. If you saw Grindhouse in the theaters, or they may be on the DVDs, I'm not sure, but if you saw Grindhouse as an experience in the theater, like I did, where it was the two movies put together as a double feature, and then there were these fake trailers between them, which is where Machete started, and then they actually Machete movies. But there were other trailers besides that, like Rob Zombie did something.
SS Werewolves or something.
Yeah, Werewolf Women of the SS, I think it was.
That's right.
So Edgar Wright had one called Don't. The film was just called Don't, and it was like a parody of like that kind of like Hammer horror era British horror movie.
I gotta pull this up and watch it. I don't remember that one.
Really good, and it's got and Simon Pegg's in it.
Nice. How crazy.
So Edgar Wright's obviously got a background in horror, but above and beyond that, man, I'm here for anything he does. I don't care if it's horror. I'm trying not to read too much about it. I just want to go see the movie. I mean, I can't. He hasn't done anything I haven't liked.
Nope.
From if you think you know everything that he and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost did together, make sure you go check out a series they did called Space.
It's great.
That predates all of those movies. It's really, really great.
So our friend Patrick McCabe says Anya Taylor-Joy and Florence Pugh are going to have to fight to the death on Biggest New Star. Both are awesome. Completely agree.
Love both of them. They're both great. Man, Florence Pugh, weirdly enough, I've been paying a lot of attention to her lately beyond movie stuff, because I've been listening to the podcast Fake Doctors, Real Friends, which is a Scrubs rewatch podcast with Zach Braff and Donald Faison. And she's in a relationship with Zach Braff. So she pops up on the podcast every once in a while.
Oh, that's great.
So because they live together. So every once in a while, she just, gets brought in on the podcast for 10 minutes or so. So I've been hearing her voice a lot lately.
Is she a Scrubs fan? I mean, I guess you would be, but
I mean, they never really addressed that. I don't think it's come up. I know they mentioned that Donald's wife has just started watching it with him, that she never really watched it before, but they hadn't said anything about, as he calls her, Flo. But they're starting to talk about Black Widow a little bit, with Black Widow coming up, and so weirdly things tie together. But
that's neat.
I think she's great. I mean, of course, I'm a huge fan of Midsummer, and she was fantastic in Little Women.
She was great in that. She was great in Lady Macbeth, which was another one she did a bit earlier. Yeah,
and I haven't seen Fighting with My Family, which I'm dying to see.
It's so good.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. She's great in the trailers, but I need to see the actual film.
Tristan,
and then, of course,
go ahead.
And of course, we're 2 weeks from Black Widow. Finally.
Can't believe that's actually about to happen. Martial arts film freak. The World's End is low-key an excellent martial arts movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I don't remember there being a lot of martial arts in it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of fighting. I don't know that I would really per se. I wouldn't think of it as like a big, wire fu or wushu, anything like that. But there's a good amount of physical battles in it.
I need to rewatch that one. That's the one that I've seen the least. It's probably the one I like the least as well, but I think that's just kind of cliche. I think everybody would probably say the same thing. I actually think Hot Fuzz might be my favorite of the Cornetto trilogy.
World's End is really great, man. It's hard for me to rank those three movies. All three of them are fantastic.
All right. Yeah, I do. I need to go back and give it another shot, I think. I mean, especially if you're like speaking that highly of it, I definitely will need to revisit it, because I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan as well.
He hasn't made a bad movie yet that I'm aware of. I mean, like I said, I'm going to see Sparks Brothers this afternoon, so maybe I'll feel differently. But based on the critical reception of the film and from what I've heard from people that have seen it, I don't think I'm going to be disappointed with it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you'll have to let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
So, the Candyman trailer is... Oh, let's see. I got a message a little bit ago. If you want. All right. So we're going to switch gears and start talking about some of the week's horror movie news. And I know if you guys have kept up with the channel, then you're already familiar with a couple of these topics that we're going to be discussing. However, we always can bring a little bit of new insight to the conversation and kind of bounce off of each other. And we'd also love to hear from you guys. So if you have thoughts on these trailers, go ahead and light up the comment section or the live chat if you're here watching this with us. So first, I think we'll talk about the Candyman trailer, as it was the first one to be released. Julio, you and I actually did a segment talking about these next two trailers on your show yesterday, which is going to be coming out a little bit later today. So if you guys want a little bit of extra information, make sure to check that out. If you're just now joining us, we talk about all the ways that you can check out the podcast in the beginning, and I'll post a link down in the description below. But first of all, let's get your thoughts on the Candyman trailer. What do you think, man?
I think it looks fantastic. I'm very excited about the film. I was a big fan of the original. You know, we talked on my show. Jeremy was 10.
Yeah, I was 10.
Yeah, I was not 10. I was older than 10. I was old enough to see it in theaters without getting turned away because I was underage. Let's put it that way. So 30, I guess we're 30 years from, because that came out in 92, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So 30 years from that.
So when you saw it in the theater, how do you remember the temperature being? I know you said you liked it. Was it a movie that people enjoyed in your experience?
Well, you know, it wasn't a huge theatrical success at the time. It was one of those movies that people really discovered on video later. Sorry, going frog in my throat.
Yeah, no doubt. Cough it up.
But so, you know, it wasn't like there was a big crowd in the theater. I want to say, I think I probably saw it opening weekend, and I want to say there might have been, you know, 30, 40 people in the theater, maybe.
Okay.
But I remember liking it a lot. The people that I saw it with liking it a lot. You know, it's just, you know, Tony Todd is now an iconic villain from that film. Although, you know, Candyman is kind of a weird character in that I don't know if you really want to call him the villain or not.
It's a really good point. Almost in the same way that is like, is Dracula the villain of that story? It's difficult, you know?
Yeah. So, but you know, him and, you know, Virginia Madsen is just so good in that movie, and not hard to look at.
No.
Still not hard to look at, but I mean, especially back then.
Is it reductive in your mind to call Candyman a slasher movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I mean, there is a high body count. He's got an iconic weapon like Leatherface or any of the other kind of slasher villains, but
slashers, to me, slashers are not necessarily supernatural. Like I think, I mean, you know, that you may play with some supernatural elements, like, you know, whether it be Leatherface or Michael Myers or whatever, you may, you know, hint at some supernatural things, but typically I think of a slasher. I don't think of Freddy Krueger as a slasher either.
I would say that Freddy is the exception.
Jason Voorhees is kind of the line to me, where he's a character where there's, you know, there's been some supernatural implications, you know, or whether he's come back from the dead or whatever. But Jason Voorhees is like that, right up on the line of, yeah, okay, I'll still call those movies slasher films. But then Freddy is just the other side of that line. So Candyman to me is not really a slasher.
Yeah, I agree. Almost in the same way that Hellraiser is not a slasher. And each of those are based on work by Clive Barker. And in fact, the original Candyman novella is, I believe it's in the Book of Blood. I'm not 100% sure I've read it, but out of the context of the book, I just read it on the internet. But Candyman is a white character, and it takes place over in London. So it was Bernard Rose that kind of transposed it to being this urban legend that takes place in a very urban area in Cabrini Green in Chicago. And the really cool thing that they're doing with this new version of Candyman is kind of inverting the mythos, and instead of it being kind of an outsider perspective looking in at this culture and this community almost as something foreign, almost as maybe something to be feared in a way, they've reconfigured it and recontextualized it to now it's a story coming from the inside. It's coming from the community that the first one was not, and the Cabrini Green has been demolished. That actually happened in real life, and now there's gentrification going on in the neighborhood, which also plays wonderfully on the themes of the first film. So like, I think it has a lot of potential for narrative weight. I also think it can be real easy to fall on tropes that we've seen a couple times lately. So hopefully they have a way of making it fresh and feel vital, you know?
Well, you know, and that's the other thing that kind of separates Candyman from a lot of these, like the horror icons that came up from the mid 70s to like the mid 90s broadly. I think that, you know, the glory days are the 80s, but you know, Leatherface and Michael Myers really both came up in the mid to late 70s. And then you had stuff that pushed into the 90s. And I mean, to me, that's Candyman is kind of where that ends. And then a few years later, you get Ghostface from Scream that comes in and kind of is like the postmodern version of that kind of character. But Candyman is set apart versus any of these others that he is a sympathetic character. You know, you can't really feel sympathy for Freddy Krueger. You know, you might root for Freddy because he's a fun character, but you know, in the end, you know, he was a child murderer before he was burned alive and, you know, and killed. You know, you can feel some sympathy for Jason Voorhees, I think, but He's really the only other one. And you know, people forget too that Jason Voorhees wasn't actually the killer in the first movie. So that kind of makes a little bit of a difference too. Jason doesn't actually show up until the end of the first Friday the 13th. Yeah, and not in the form that people recognize him in until 3D, and even then he evolves, you know, substantially after that. But you're right, Jason would be the other sympathetic, but at what point does it become, you know, gratuitous? I feel like Candyman stays pretty sympathetic. I don't feel like Jason stays sympathetic.
No, that's a good point.
I think that sets him apart from the rest of that breed. And I think that really plays into what they're doing with this movie, or what it seems like they're doing with this movie. And that, you know, I'm not just saying this because Jordan Peele is a producer on it, but where it's getting into that whole social ramification where there's there's a message to it beyond just the baseline story. And there's some socio-political side to the film, which I'm all.
I am so terrible at names. I don't want to mispronounce the lead actor's name. Let me pull it up real quick. Do you know it?
Is it Yahya Abdul-Mateen?
Yes, yeah, Yahya Abdul-Mateen.
From Watchmen and Aquaman?
That is correct. So he played Black Manta in Aquaman, and where I first was exposed to him was in Watchmen, and I love that series. I feel like it touches on some very vital and important themes of what's going on in society.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. So I loved it, and I love the reveal at the end that I won't spoil.
Also was really great in the Trial of Chicago 7.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was fantastic. And I slipped my mind that he was one of the main characters in it, you know? I love that movie. For those of you that haven't seen Trial of Chicago 7, it is so much better than Nomadland. Not to throw shade, Nomadland's good, but oh my God, what a snooze fest. Julio, did you see Nomadland?
I haven't seen it, no.
Oh, God, I finally watched it. It's a good movie. There's no way I can sit here and say it's a good movie. It's just, I'm not the demo for it, so... Trial of the Chicago 7, on the other hand, really enjoyed that one. But all right, final thoughts on Candyman trailer. I don't really know.
I'm here for it. I can't wait for it to come out.
Yeah, same. And I think we did get a glimpse of Tony Todd, Julio. You mentioned it to me on the show yesterday, so I started scrubbing the video, and I think that's him.
yeah, Tony Todd is definitely back in this movie. I'm excited for that too.
Yeah, for sure. And Tony Todd's another person that we've had at the convention here in Pensacola, Pensacon.
Yep.
And I got a little signature to him over there. I point it out anytime I get an opportunity. It says, to a Twitter person of merit, because I got to know him a little bit before he ended up coming to Pensacola, because I'm just such a huge fan of Candyman. So I haven't stayed in touch with him like I would like to, but there was like a year period around that particular Pensacon where we stayed in touch. It was pretty cool.
Well, hopefully we'll get him back here eventually. We tried to get him back the year we had Virginia Madsen, and just the schedules didn't work out. But hopefully back here again eventually.
He is a huge sweetheart too, for whatever that's worth. Super nice guy. Big into community outreach and all of those kind of things. That just makes him a respectable actor, because so many people aren't interested in like giving back.
Yeah.
Let's see. Email. I wonder if I can bring somebody in instead of inviting them. Can I actually? Let's see.
I don't think you can draft them. It's not the military.
All right, let's see what happens here. Control C. We got a guest who may or may not be joining us. The dude's just, he's a wild card. You never know what you're getting with this motherfucker, and I kind of like him for it. What do you think, Julio? He's all right?
Are we talking about who you're thinking? I think we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a wild card's one way to put it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I had no idea that you guys went back in the way that you did. I didn't know y'all did a radio show together until you just now told me that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Choose email to send invitation. Why am I not signed into Google? Oh, this is what the people come for. Technical stuff. Google. All right, well, next conversation, Julio, get me started on the Halloween trailer. Halloween Kills.
Halloween Kills. Yeah. The trailer is pretty dynamic. My big concern about the trailer is that I'm wondering whether they didn't give away too much. I'm hoping they didn't. I'm hoping there's so much in this movie that what they showed is just the surface, and there's so much more going on in this movie that we have yet to see. But man, it feels like they gave away a whole lot. I mean, starting out with just outright telling you how Michael Myers survived the fire at the end of the 2018 Halloween. I'm surprised they gave that away in a trailer, but they did, and it feels like they give away the fates of a whole lot of characters. There's a whole lot of death in this trailer. There's a whole lot of murder in this trailer, and that maybe that bodes well, and that maybe this movie has a huge body count, but I can't remember a trailer with such a high body count.
No, I absolutely agree. It's unreal how many people it looks like Mikey kills in this movie. Definitely to a supernatural extent, because just the idea of one man running through that many police officers, anything else that he ends up going up against, I find very fantastical. But I like the fact that they're doing something different. And I also seem like I felt a little bit of the Rob Zombie Halloween influence on it, just in Michael's brutality. Like when he grabs that guy by the head and just starts slamming it into the window seal. I was like, oh, they did it in 2018 as well in the bathroom stall scene, but like I remember Michael really getting physical like that in the Halloween Rob Zombie version when he's in the mental institute and breaks out. Did you like those zombie movies?
I didn't see the Rob Zombie film, so I can't really comment on those. I don't know that I've seen. Now that I think about it, I don't know that I've seen any of Rob Zombie's directorial work.
Really?
Outside, I'm sure he's directed some of his own music videos, so I've probably seen those, but I haven't seen Devil's Rejects or any of those.
Gonna be honest, man, I kind of envy you for it.
I think I've got a copy of House of a Thousand Corpses and just haven't watched it.
The inception of House of a Thousand Corpses is pretty interesting. It ties directly to Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando. It's pretty cool story the way that it works out, because a lot of what you see in the movie is things that were going to be in this haunt that they were doing at Universal. So the behind the scenes is cool. Yeah.
That Well, I didn't know if you were going for like a Hellfest, like which was not a good movie at all.
Yes. Good call though. Good comparison.
Yeah, that's a slasher movie, and
Yes.
not a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, when you said that about the supernatural, I'm thinking like, well, fuck. I mean, Michael Myers is pretty supernatural. Freddy is pretty supernatural. Jason is pretty supernatural. But then you got like Terror Train, Slaughter High, My Bloody Valentine, Black Christmas. So many more movies that didn't launch franchises where it's just a killer.
Yeah, Silent Night. There's a million of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there's degrees of gray to everything, and where you end up putting these things in your head is up to you. And if you want to feel like Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie, go ahead.
Yeah.
If you want to feel like Candyman is a slasher movie, that's all you. Knock yourself out. But generally, like, I think of a slasher as being, it may have some supernatural elements, but the thing is, go back and look at the original Halloween. The original Halloween didn't have any supernatural elements.
No, it did not. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
The original Friday the 13th didn't have any supernatural elements.
Which one?
There was the original Friday the 13th.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's, you compare that to something like Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, Hellraiser. Those all had supernatural elements right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, one of the interesting things about the 2018 Halloween, and I might be talking out of turn here. I know that there have been other slasher franchises, but I feel like post-Scream, the Halloween franchise has been one of the few, well, this is inaccurate, but I feel like 2018's Halloween is one of the few postmodern, post-Scream horror movies that didn't lean so heavily into the meta and the self-awareness of it. You look at like the Scream franchise really just changed the trajectory, and you've got movies like Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, the Hatchet franchise. There's all these ones that are like winking at you because the formula had become so predictable that it made it difficult. But I thought the 2018 version did a really good job of being an earnest slasher movie and doing it well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, I agree. But at the same time, I think Hellfest took itself very seriously.
Good call.
Wasn't good.
No.
I mean, there's no wink at the camera in that movie, but there's also just no talent in that movie at all. It's just, it was so bad.
Let's see. Yeah. I'm talking to Chris. How's to
go? There's been some others like that, like where I think they've been played pretty straightforward, but just weren't very good. Like the first Ouija was, I mean, that was played pretty straightforward, but man, was it just terrible. I heard the second one was good, but I didn't even see it because the first one was just so bad.
Okay, yeah, I did hear the second one was pretty good as well, but I didn't see either of them. Origins of Evil.
Yeah, first one was terrible, but I mean, I'm not big, and I think they're played pretty straightforward, but I'm not big on any of the Conjuring universe stuff. Now, I grant you, I haven't seen Conjuring 1 and 2, but the ones that I have seen, I'm not big on, but they're played very straightforward.
Yeah.
The Insidious movies, again, they're played very straightforward. Well, there's some humor to the Insidious franchise, but I don't think it's like a wink and a nod at the camera.
Yeah,
kind of.
Right. It's more organic humor in it. Yeah, you're right.
The Nightmare on Elm Street series too, but for the most part, it's not wink and a nod at the camera. The only one that there's of those where I think there is of course Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is completely meta
and really good.
Yeah,
I like that one pretty good. But yeah, so that I'm glad you brought up the thing about the Conjuring universe, because what we're about to be talking about is the relationship between heavy metal and horror movies, and then there's the other side of the spectrum, which is the religious horror film. And I know that these movies go back for quite a while. I think Exorcist would be one of the ones that people point to say this is the beginning of this kind of craze of possession movies. Oh, there he goes. So that's an interesting dichotomy. You know, there's the movies where religion is used to overcome evil, and then there's the movies that are really more based in like Satanism, and I think those are the ones that are that doesn't make sense because the Satanism thing ties directly into the religious thing. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like so many of the 80s horror movies were almost like shit, man, I kind of lost myself in this one as I'm starting to think about it, but good overcomes evil with the power of love and all those kind of stuff in the religious horror movies, and then some are much more nihilistic than that, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's see. We're gonna go ahead and move on.
I think the whole thing of, you know, like the whole concept of the final girl, and the whole concept of that, you know, it always being the girl who was pure and you know, state of virgin and whatever, blah blah. That now has been, you know, there's been so many meta movies that have dealt with that. I mean, everything from Cabin in the Woods to the movie Final Girls, which is great.
That's a really good meta slasher movie.
Both of those movies are great, but yeah, Final Girls especially, you know, plays very much into that whole trope.
Yes, it does. Yeah. And so what the two that Julio just now mentioned, Cabin in the Woods, Final Girls, and then the one that I mentioned a minute ago, which you can see a kill count to on Dead Meat. But if you haven't seen the movie, don't watch the kill count. That's a stupid way to consume movies. But Leslie Vernon, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon is a really cool deconstruction of the slasher genre, and it really plays into like how the villain is able to always be right behind the girl no matter how fast she runs because she keeps tripping, and basically it's a game of stop and start. Every time she turns around, he just hauls ass as fast as he can, and then she turns around and he's like walking methodically again. So there's a lot of really fun stuff like that like, no, it's not supernatural, it just takes a lot of prep work ahead of time, and I thought that was a fun concept.
Oh, that's funny. I'll check that out.
I don't understand what the deal is. I don't know how to fix it. He's having an issue getting in to the Zoom call. I know. Technology. Am I right?
Yeah.
All right. What else is going on?
The Halloween Kills trailer and the fact that there's so much murder in it. But I got to say, it's the second trailer this year that gave away what I thought was a big kill, but I think we're also two of the best kills I've seen in at least in a few years, if not all time.
Hit me. Which ones?
The other one's not a horror movie, but it's Mortal Kombat.
Oh, yeah.
Sub-Zero freezing the guy's blood into a dagger and then stabbing him with it.
A fantastic shot, and yes, they did spoil that in the trailer. Okay, so somebody mentioned to me yesterday, and I thought that this was a fair point. Apparently, the 2018 Halloween trailer had kills in it that weren't in the movies or were done differently. So maybe there are some misleads going on. I think that would change.
That could be. That would be pretty good, actually, if it were. Let's hope it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first movie to do things like that. You know, a lot of the Marvel movies will put stuff in there as misleads or that, you know, or alternate shots or whatever like that. I have a feeling we're seeing some of that in some of the Suicide Squad trailers too.
Yeah. I bet you are. I bet you are right about that.
Like the new trailer where Harley Quinn says she had to take a number 2. I'm betting that line is different in the actual film.
Yeah.
Well,
all right, well, so I was going through Bloody Disgusting, just kind of trying to find some horror movie news to discuss, and I bumped across one story that I found to be kind of interesting, just because it sounds like a Mad Lib. This is the headline: Underwater Haunted House Movie, The Deep House, acquired by Blumhouse for Epix Pictures. Okay, so French filmmaker duo, best known for their ultra-violent Inside, as well as Livid and Leatherface, are next diving into aquatic horror with The Deep House, in which a couple of divers discover a haunting in the depths of a lake. Yes, we're talking about an aquatic horror haunted house movie, a mix that has us very excited. And then according to the synopsis, while diving in a remote lake, a couple of YouTubers who specialize in underwater exploration videos discover a house submerged in deep water. What do you think about that?
How do they talk to each other?
Oh, come on. You're going to hit me with the technical shit first? I don't know, Julio.
where's the dialogue coming from?
Have you seen Open Water 2?
No.
Of course not. Who the fuck's seen Open Water 2? I saw it. It's the best. No, it's but they have these big masks on with comms built into the face mask.
Big scuba helmets. Okay, maybe they're doing that. All right.
Did they do that in the Abyss?
I think there's a place for underwater horror or suspense or whatever you call it. What was the movie that? Why am I blanking on the name? It's a really good movie with the alligators in the crawl space. During the crawl. Thank you. Yeah. No, I thought that was fantastic, and I don't know that I necessarily call that a straight up horror movie. I guess, however you want to put it, but man, I thought that was great.
It really is
kind of aquatic horror. So, but it's not supernatural. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
It's an interesting mix. Like what you're saying is I've always perceived aquatic horror to not be supernatural.
Yeah. I can't think of, I mean, there's stuff like Ghost Ship, but that's still above the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, why not give it a try?
It's one of those high concept kind of pitches where it's like, all right, picture this. It's a haunted house underwater, and people are like, fucking heads explode. So I was thinking, dude, just by the same logic, I mean, you're a creative guy. I was thinking, do you think we could pitch a horror movie with werewolves in space? Like, can you and I come up with a good synopsis for how we can get werewolves into space organically? You down for this?
I mean, I'm thinking of Marvel Comics. You got Werewolf by Night. John Jameson was an astronaut, and that's how he became a werewolf through some kind of like space rock or something like that. So it's not unprecedented.
Oh wow, I did not realize when I came up with this weird hybrid of ideas that had already been done in Marvel Comics. Yeah. So okay,
do you have a plot element, like every time the moon is in view of the spacecraft that the person turns into a werewolf? So they're trying desperately to keep the ship in orbit on the opposite side of the planet, so it's not, but there's something wrong with the guidance system and it keeps drifting into the moon, and then the werewolf goes crazy.
That's what I like, yeah, because the full moon is the whole premise of the werewolf mythos. So if you're in space, you've got a full view of the moon at any given time, as long as you're on the side of it. Like, the moon's always full, depending on where you're sitting. It's like a perspective thing. So I don't know how a werewolf, let's see, the astronaut is on their way to... Shit, where does the astronaut encounter the werewolf that bites them? Or are we going with a different kind of origin? I think that the astronaut... You remember that one astronaut lady that, like, traveled across the country in a diaper to, like, murder her husband's girlfriend?
I do.
Is there something there?
She went nuts because she was bit by a rabid werewolf, maybe? I don't know.
Oh, rabid werewolf. That's a whole extra layer.
Yeah, I don't know that there's been a rabid werewolf movie.
Yeah, what's worse, the lycanthropy or the rabies?
Yeah, the rabies you can get a shot for, I guess. But
fair.
Yeah, extremely painful series of shots, as I understand it. But there is a cure if it's caught in time.
So...
there's no cure for lycanthropy that I'm aware of.
I like it. Sure. I think we're on to something.
Medical science is still working hard on that, but
yeah. Bullarky asked us what our thoughts are on the Green Knight trailer. I've seen it.
Yeah, I saw it. It played before F9. In fact, man, that looks fantastic.
It really does. I am very excited about it. It's Ari Aster's new film, or it's
No, not Ari Aster. It's oh gosh, what's his name?
The other really good dude working right now. Is it Joel Eggers?
No.
Robert Eggers. Let's see.
It's not Robert Eggers. It's Burton.
Let's see.
I'm blanking on the guy's name, but man, the trailer looks outstanding.
His name's David Lowery, but that doesn't sound familiar to me.
Well, I knew it was somebody that had a familiar name, but wasn't the guy that I'm familiar with the name from. So there's a guy named David Lowery who is the lead singer of and primary songwriter for Camper, Van Beethoven, and Cracker.
Oh, really?
But that's not this David Lowery. This is another David Lowery.
So this guy directed A Ghost Story, which I hear is good. I haven't seen it. It's got Casey Affleck in it. He did Upstream Color, which was cool and different. And that's the only things that I know of his. But yes, I agree with you. It looks very interesting. It's definitely got that A24 flavor that we've come to expect of a studio that is not afraid to take risks, and then has become so synonymous with quality horror movies that they will put a Green Knight trailer ahead of F9, which does not seem like a crossover.
It's coming out in the heat of summer, man. They're rolling the dice with us, and it looks like they spent some money on this movie.
It does.
Too.
It does.
This is not like a small production. I mean, the effects look incredible, and I'm very intrigued by this film. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. I think that one does have a lot of potential. So we're going to go ahead and switch gears into this week's topic. Julio's actually got to go in just under 20 minutes, so we're going to discuss a little bit of the relationship between horror and heavy metal. And there's a specific reason why we are doing this, and he's tardy. He's currently not present. But I love this topic. But our friend Chris Wilkes, who you probably remember from some of the terrible movie trivia episodes, as well as some of the horror discussions that we've had on the channel in the past, he was actually featured heavy and knows the director of a filmmaker who did Slayer's something Killology. Yes. And basically it is a short horror film, 30-40 minute film ahead of a lot of live concert footage that was directed by a Pensacola native. Julio, do you know his name?
DJ McDonald.
Okay. DJ?
He also directed Hatchet 3.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's a pretty nice little thing on his resume.
He also does a lot when he's not directing. He does a lot of camera work. I know he worked on Shazam, among other things.
Oh, wow!
As a camera guy.
So Chris and he are buddies, or know each other, and Chris was featured in this, and he's a big fan of heavy metal. He actually works at a venue here called the Vinyl Music Hall, where he books talent that come through bands and things like that. So he's very vested in the music scene here in the area, and he also loves horror movies. So we kind of wanted to just discuss the relationship between horror and heavy metal and how inextricably linked these two things are. As I mentioned, I believe at the top, that Black Sabbath is kind of the granddaddies of all of that subgenre. And then Julio, because I know you're pretty familiar, you're kind of a music scholarly person yourself. Like, who was the next wave? Was it Iron Maiden or something?
I mean, I can't think of a whole lot of Iron Maiden being used in film, which is weird.
No. I'm sorry. Let me set this up better. No, where their aesthetic heavily borrows from horror movies.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know that that's next, but it's definitely one that should be mentioned.
Okay.
Obviously, they are one of the few bands that have a mascot, and Eddie, the Iron Maiden mascot, is very much steeped in the horror world. He's kind of a horrific creature, no matter what kind of situation they put him in on an album cover or whatever. It was mostly album covers originally. I don't know that they've ever really explored that character as much, beyond album covers, which is weird. It would have tried to do something with them over the years. I'm not sure that they have. But yeah, there's a lot, but I think there's a lot of, you could say that even like Twisted Sister had a kind of a horror aesthetic to a lot of what they did. If you look at that cover of the cover of the Stay Hungry album, where it's Dee Snider with the makeup and the ripped clothes and the bone, there's a lot of bands where they adopted that into the overall, you take it to the extreme and you get to Gwar. But
yeah. So, okay, we've got Black Sabbath, then Iron Maiden, and that kind of, I guess we can, because those are two distinctly different genres, right? We've got Black Sabbath is not really, doesn't really neatly fit into the box of what we would classify as heavy metal, but they just established a lot of the sounds. And if I'm not mistaken, the metal part of it really comes from the industrial part of it, and then like Judas Priest really worked it into the wardrobes. So the leather and chrome thing was big with Judas Priest. So then after Iron Maiden, we have like I mean, Slayer.
Well, Slayer for sure, but I mean, I think there was a big tie in the 80s. Well, we're missing a step here because you really have to go back to Alice Cooper.
Yes, absolutely. Good
I mean,
call.
Alice Cooper is kind of the real root of all of this, and in terms of the stage performance and the aesthetic and the imagery, and coming kind of out of the glam period, and there's still a lot of glam to to a lot of Alice Cooper stuff. I think that's where really that's probably the next step after Black Sabbath is probably Alice Cooper.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that. That is a must, because he is such a big influence on a lot of the stuff that kind of comes into my era, which is the 1990s. And it wasn't so much the heavy metal as it was your Tool, Nine Inch Nails, and Marilyn Manson. You look at their videos and their aesthetic. It was very influenced by French impressionist kind of movement, and like Tool's stop motion stuff was directly inspired by some like short film. I can't remember what it was called right now, but it has that same very eerie stop motion style, and a lot of that stuff actually is featured in that horror movie Caveat, which I mentioned at the top of this. But those bands were so mainstream and definitely brought this very morbid and dark sensibility to the mainstream in a way that really hasn't been replicated since.
Well, even before that, though, even in the 80s, there was it was a lot of times where the horror movie would have the heavy metal soundtrack or the heavy metal theme song. And there's a lot of really good ones in that era too. I mean, to me, one of the best is Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yes.
With Dream Warriors. That's a solid song on its own, but when you tie it to, and it's very much tied to the movie itself too. Alice Cooper, like that was like the Alice Cooper comeback when he was doing the Man Behind the Mask and for Friday the 13th and Poison, and then he did a whole bunch of songs like that after that. But there was a lot of that. Heavy metal was kind of like de rigueur or the soundtracks for a lot of those movies.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess we can lump a whole lot of stuff together real quick so we can talk about some of the most metal movies. But there was, Cannibal Corpse, and then the whole like Scandinavian black metal thing where their whole look, later Slipknot, Mudvayne, most recently Ghost, where their whole aesthetic, their whole stage presence, everything is horror movies, masks, violent lyrics. I hate Cannibal Corpse, just throwing it out there, but a lot of people like that stuff. Like, I want to cut off your dick and fuck the stump, and you're like, ugh, gross.
But I mean, all of that goes back to Alice Cooper again. Alice Cooper was, had guillotines on the stage and was cutting off heads. And
yes.
Blood. And it's very, early version of that, and very, very stagey, but that's where it really starts.
Yes, absolutely. Patrick McCabe, I'm glad you brought that up. Adam Jones, the guitar player of Tool, actually worked in Hollywood. He did, I didn't know he worked on Jurassic Park. I did know he worked on Terminator 2 and Dances with Wolves. And he's the person that does a lot of the visualizations that go on at the concerts. I'm a big Tool fan. My wife, not so much. She's like, that just doesn't even make sense musically. Like, I don't know how you listen to that. I'm like, after the 30th time you hear the song, it really starts to move you. Their time signatures are weird,
Yeah, I'm not a huge Tool fan. I appreciate what they do, but it's just not generally for me. I think it's incredibly smart, and there's a lot of talent there. It's just not what I choose to throw on to listen to.
Understandable. So it is 11:20, Julio. You got about 10 minutes left. Let's hit this last one where we're going to talk about some of the most heavy metal movies. Obviously, we're going to focus a bit on horror. However, there are some very iconic ones that we just can't overlook. So, did you ever see 1986's Trick or Treat?
No, I have not seen Trick or Treat. I've seen Trick or Treat.
Which one?
Trick or Treat is the anthology with Sam, the Halloween guy.
Good movie. Okay, got it.
Oh, fantastic. But I have not seen Trick or Treat. But yeah, that that's definitely one that falls into this category from what I know of it.
And I haven't seen it either. Maybe we've got some homework that we need to check out, because Chris loves this movie. I know he's mentioned it to me several times. So it's definitely got a bit of notoriety, and I don't remember who stars in it, but it's actually got, like, is it Ozzy or something?
I think so, yeah.
So that's one. Can you think of one that either fits that aesthetic or features a ton of heavy metal in it?
Well, I mean, I already mentioned it, but definitely Nightmare on Elm Street 3. That the song and the movie tie together very closely. There's a lot of the imagery that's in the song comes straight from the movie, and a lot of those characters.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And actually, speaking to that, Freddy versus Jason, even in the early aughts, featured Spineshank, Slipknot, a lot of those new metal bands, which was kind of my era of metal. Like, I'm not huge on, you guys know the voices. There's the ba 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 ba, and I don't like that one so much. But I do like that. It's like a different scream. And then I also like the guys like, like Run Through the Hills or whatever by Megadeth, like the more operatic singing.
Run Through the Hills is Iron Maiden.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. That's what we were talking about a little bit ago. And just that, like, more ballady, belting it out. That's more what Ghost does. Ghost doesn't have a lot of the screaming stuff, but I really like Corey Taylor's scream from Slipknot. I really like As I Lay Dying, Atreyu. There's a handful of metal bands that, like, when I want to get hype, I listen to them, but it doesn't always work for me. However, I don't think we can talk about this conversation without at least bringing up Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I mean, Led Zeppelin took so much from Lord of the Rings just to start with. There's so much metal that has been influenced by not so much the movies, but by the original novel series. There's any number of those. There's a whole, like, fantasy metal subgenre, for lack of a better term.
We could throw Thor Ragnarok into this mix.
Yeah, although that they used Immigrant Song twice in the movie, but I think the score, though, is a lot more of that. Like, it's by Mark Mothersbaugh. It's one of the best Marvel movie scores, I think.
Yes,
but that goes more into, like, the 80s synthesizer kind of driven, which we're seeing more of in Loki right now too.
I would not be surprised to find out that Love and Thunder leans even heavier into all that by everything I've seen so far. The Nordic fantasy metal stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, the title certainly would lean towards that. I mean, I think there's an aesthetic there that I think has some metal aspect to it, but also has, like, a lot of prog rock aspect to it, which those can cross over a lot too. There's a lot of progressive metal out there.
Dragon Force or something is one of my go-tos.
Yeah, I mean, it's guys that were probably equally influenced by Black Sabbath and Yes or Rush.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what about like kind of in that same vein, Conan the Barbarian? Again, it doesn't feature a lot of metal in the soundtrack or anything, but just, again, that kind of Nordic fantasy metal that has kind of permeated so many of the bands lately. So I wanted to mention that. My top three. Go ahead.
Anytime there's burly dudes swinging around swords,
it's pretty metal.
Yeah,
no doubt. So, okay, these are my top three. I'll just hit them first, and then we'll talk a little bit about each of them. I know you're running low on time, so I'll keep an eye on that. But we got Mad Max Fury Road with the fucking guitar player hanging suspended with the flaming guitar, super metal. We've got Deathgasm, which is a low-budget New Zealand Kiwi horror movie. It's like a horror comedy, and it's very about heavy metal. Pick of Destiny. I didn't even think about that one ahead of time, but Pick of Destiny.
Yeah. I was thinking about Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny is absolutely a metal movie.
Yes, all the way down to the Dave Grohl Satan thing at the end. That's a good one. And then my number one, I think this is the most metal movie, and I really wish Chris was on the line to take the opposite stance on this. Julio, have you seen Mandy?
I have not seen Mandy. I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
It is one of those movies that, again, very synth-heavy soundtrack, which I do feel like a lot of that kind of soundscapey synth stuff. It's there's a bit of crossover there, but the aesthetic of it, like everything's bathed in red. The bad guys in it are like people that became demons because they did too much LSD. Nicolas Cage's weapon in it is this huge steel axe that he forged in the fires, and he's like fighting people with 5-foot chainsaws. It is so badass, but it is also really inaccessible, I think, to average audiences because it is so stylishly unlike anything else that I think people just didn't know how to process it. Or there's the other side of the spectrum where people like me were like, it's the best movie ever, but those are a couple.
Like, I think metal isn't just a genre of music or a sound. I think it's an aesthetic. And I think there's stuff that can be metal without being necessarily being metal music. You say the same thing about punk rock. You know, there's a punk rock aesthetic that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the sound of the music.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like you and I talked about Cruella a few weeks back.
Well, we mentioned Green Room earlier in the show, and that's like that world. It is a punk metal, like kind of like where they rub up against each other. That's where that movie takes place. So I mean, I think you could call Green Room kind of a metal movie.
I agree. I think that's a really good addition. Yeah,
I think that's good. But you know, there are things beyond horror that you got to mention if you're talking about metal in movies. First of all, you got to talk about the decline of Western civilization Part 2.
I haven't seen that
completely. Well, so the first one was the LA punk scene, decline of Western civilization. The second one was the LA metal scene.
Okay.
So that is, you know, it's a documentary, but it's absolutely essential if you're talking about metal in movies.
I got to see that.
You absolutely have to mention This Is Spinal Tap.
Of course. I'm so glad you brought that up.
That may be the most metal movie of all time.
It's very also self-aware in a way that a lot of things aren't, and I really appreciate that because it's obviously a send-up done with love, but it is so revealing about what drives and motivates people to do those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. And then I think you've got to mention the Bill and Ted franchise.
Yeah, for sure.
Bill and Ted, especially the first two movies, absolutely metal. There's nothing that's not metal about those movies. They're entirely based around the metalhead. Bill and Ted are metalheads.
Yeah,
a little less so in the third movie. You know, the third movie goes a lot more broad. But the first two, man, I mean, you look at the bands that are on the soundtrack, you look at the people that show up in the movies, and then you look at, you know, just Bill and Ted themselves. That they're absolutely Wild Stallions is a metal band.
What about that? I think that's a good point. What about Lost Boys? Is that glam? Would you say is the aesthetic in Lost Boys? Like, I feel like it's exists in a kind of a space between a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's Joel Schumacher.
So it's super gay. Yeah. But
it's, I mean, like it's one of Joel Schumacher's best movies. I think it's an outstanding movie. Yeah, there's some metal to that aesthetic, but there's a little punk to that aesthetic. There's a little, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in that movie.
And then, of course, the theme being very goth rock, very Typo Negative, Sisters of Mercy kind of sound, and that's a whole different pathway that a lot of horror movies, you know, lean into the goth aesthetic. But I do feel like on the opposite end, go ahead.
But big muscular shirtless dude with playing a saxophone is not metal.
I still believe. Yeah, dude, it's the best part of that movie. Best part. I love that movie so much. That's another one that I saw when it came out.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah. 92 was the year that Bram Stoker's Dracula and Candyman came out. I saw Stoker's Dracula in the theater with my older brother, and those are still to this day two favorites.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater too. It was a great film.
Well, Julio, thank you very much for hanging out with me, my friend. It's always a pleasure, and hope to do this again sometime. Maybe next week.
Sounds good. Let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and let me know how that Edgar Wright movie is.
I will.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
All right, guys. That ends that section of the podcast. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get Chris back on the line one more time to get his take on this stuff. How's everybody doing? Everybody feeling good? We enjoying the conversation on metal and horror movies. I see that Random Andy's channel has run away. That's It's really sad. Oh, Daryl, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the conversation. Patrick McCabe says, I'm loving this conversation right now. I appreciate that. And I think I Am Sam is also a fellow metal fan. So I'm glad you guys are hanging out and being a part of the conversation. Join meeting. That's not what I'm trying to do. So yeah, it was definitely a interesting week for the horror movie stuff. And I'm sure if you guys, have heard any of the podcasts and stuff, I am a very big fan of horror movies, and I really do enjoy talking about them. I know that sometimes there's not a whole lot of crossover between the big popcorn superhero movies and your franchises, and then these more obscure dark little movies. But when I see people bring up The Green Knight in the live chat, I know that we are building a awesome community over here of all sorts of different people, and it's nice to know that a lot of the film fans, the people who like cinema more than genres, have found their way over here and have just shared in that love of movies with me, because I really do like to be surrounded by people that have a vested interest in film and the art form itself. So I really do like the community that we're building over here. Thank you very much, Random Andy's channel. You're awesome as well, man. Surprised a little bit that you didn't like Mandy. There's one called Beyond the Black Rainbow that Panos Cosmatos did as well, and I think that one's worth checking out. It's also a very dreamlike experience. It's a not really linear storytelling in that conventional way, but really good nonetheless. I'm gonna see what I can do here with this Zoom. Invite. Copy invite link. Try this. Let's see here. King of the Hills 34. What's up, buddy? Yeah, Julio had to slide out at 11:30, and that's okay. I was glad to have him on for a little bit. If you guys do get a chance to drop by and check out the Let's Go Pensacola site, show some support over there. It is a really good channel, so or a really good radio program. Let's see. Way too artsy for my taste. This is from Random Andy's channel. I love artsy movies, but the first half, way too artsy for my taste. And by the time it got to the wild part, I didn't even care because I had a hard time with the first half. Yeah, I think Victoria was kind of the same thing, where she's just like, and then even, it's just different. It's a very, very unique, different movie. So yeah, what do you guys think about the crossovers between horror and heavy metal? Are there some examples that we missed? I would be very curious of things that I might have overlooked. Bull Larky, what's up, man? Anyone seen Climax? No, I actually haven't seen any of Jasper Noah's. Jasper Noah, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I've never seen any of his movies. I know Irreversible, Climax, Into the Void. All of them have a reputation for being extremely violent, subversive, different kind of genre mashup movies. And Climax is Climax the one with the dance studio that's got the girl from The Mummy in it? I think that's the one, and that's the one I'm the most interested in seeing. I know that it starts with LSD in the punch or something like that. Everybody starts hallucinating and just loses their fucking minds, which, not endorsing it, but LSD and mushrooms normally don't make you want to kill each other. It's a fabrication done by Hollywood to get their woke agenda into you. I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. I gotta say I'm kidding now, because if I don't say I'm kidding, people don't know I'm kidding, so I'm totally kidding. Random Andy's channel. You want to see a really trippy movie? Watch The Holy Mountain. I've actually never heard of that one, so I will definitely add it to the list. let's see, what other horror movies or movies inspired by heavy metal? Or hell, let's take it a different direction. What kind of heavy metal do you listen to? Name a band that you really like. Bullarky said, just watch it, dude. You'll feel the bad trips. LOL. All right, yeah, I'll check it out. I think it's available for streaming somewhere as well. But if you guys are not subscribed to horror, if you're not subscribed to Shudder and you're horror fans, I say skip a coffee once out of the day. Skip one of those $5 shakes and get yourself Shudder. It's $4.99 a month. It's not got the hugest catalog of well-known horror movies on it. In fact, if you're into like the more recognizable ones, HBO Max has a lot of that stuff on there. But Shudder has just stuff off the beaten path, little low-budget gems, things that you're not going to find other places, things that you might not hear about ahead of time. One of the last movies I watched on Shudder was called Slacks, and I believe Andy actually sent me a DM over on Facebook about it. And it's a movie about a killer pair of jeans, or more than one killer pair of jeans. It's fucking ridiculous. It reminded me a lot of Rubber, the one with the killer tire in it. But yeah, every once in a while you'll find some hidden gems. Random Andy's channel. I like country music, but I can pretend it's metal for this live. Thank you very much. Oh, Patrick McCabe, thank you. Pantera. Oh man, the Great Southern Trendkill. Just Dimebag Darrell in general. I know it's kind of a basic answer, but Broken and Cemetery Gates are two of my favorite Pantera songs. Really good shit. Black Label Society, another Dimebag project. I think that was his band, if I'm not mistaken. I think he actually got killed at a Black Label Society concert. Am I right about that? I think it was a Dimebag show, not a Pantera show. And then Mastodon. Oh, dude, Mastodon is super, super good. And then, like, who are a couple of other ones that are, like, I listen to a lot of the, like I mentioned earlier, like a lot of the new metal, post-metal, or post-hardcore stuff that came out in the 90s. Like, I really like Avail. I really like, what are they called? Fuck, I can't think of their name right now. Refused? So they're the ones that do the, I think, yeah. Refused. The Art of Noise, I think, is them. Yeah. The Shape of Punk to Come. So Refused is super good. Like AFI, they went through a little phase, like Black Flag Sales at Sunset, where they were doing a little bit more kind of the post-hardcore thing. I know they're not really metal, but bands like Clutch and Eagles of Death Metal and really like Slipknot. I've seen Slipknot in concert a couple of times. They're a fantastic band to see live. I've seen Megadeth, I've seen Ozzy, Black Sabbath, Tool, Nine Inch Nails, Deftones, Korn, Limp Bizkit, Primus. I saw Method Man and Redman one time. That was pretty dope. I really enjoyed that. That was one of the few hip-hop concerts that I've been to, but they were actually opening up for, Korn or something like that. Saw Ice Cube. I've seen Incubus. I don't even know why I started naming bands. I've seen a lot of concerts, but that late 90s, early 2000s was kind of my my sweet spot. Oh, yeah, Zakk Wylde. That's right. Thank you, Patrick McCabe. That's right. Smashing Pumpkins. RGTM. I'm probably just not thinking of who that is right now. RGTM, let me know. Smashing Pumpkins, I was telling my wife Victoria just this morning that Smashing Pumpkins was like kind of the literary rock of the 90s. Like if you were like an English lit major, you loved Smashing Pumpkins. I think Billy Corgan's one of the greatest lyric writers of all times, and James Iha just played some wild riffs, some things that you just wouldn't hear other bands do. So I'm a huge fan of Smashing Pumpkins. Oh yeah, Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, Rage Against the Machine, absolutely. Rage is one of my favorite bands. Their self-titled album is so good, but I really like Evil Empire. I can't think of the one, Battle of Los Angeles. Rage is incredible. And then, also more stuff like Soundgarden from that era. the most recent kind of metal that I've been listening to is Ghost. But then I also love hip hop. Like I'm my musical tastes are all over the spectrum, similar to my love of movies. I think there's good in every genre. Unfortunately, I haven't found a lot of country that really resonates with me. However, I would be lying to say that I don't like, Johnny Cash, Hank Williams Jr., the Outlaws, Old Willie Nelson. Dolly's got some great songs, just old people shit. That's pretty much it. I like a lot of old people shit. Mudvayne every now and then, but took a little break from metal. Yeah. That's understandable. Some of it's just silly. Like I was watching some music videos this morning, and whatever it was, I was like, nah, that's not for me. And I can never like pull up clips to play of music because that's like the biggest no. So let's see. The Catholic myself, I agree. Oh, this has nothing to do with nothing. Well, I think that was fun. I think we did a good podcast. Gatekeeping in any genre, whether film or music, is so lame, says Patrick McCabe. I couldn't agree more. And I hate it when people just dismiss a whole genre of music right off the bat. Like, all metal sounds the same. And it's like, it really doesn't. That's like saying I hate rap music. It's like, what do you hate? You hate backpack rap? You hate trap? You hate, why can't I think of any genres of hip hop right now? There's the West Coast stuff from like that Dr. Dre was producing and Suge Knight was producing over at Death Row Records, and then you've got Bad Boy Records over on the East Coast that was doing the more, Diddy was producing all of like Notorious B.I.G. stuff. I really like the New York scene, like Talib Kweli, Tribe Called Quest, Mos Def, Nas. Nas is like my favorite MC, I think, of all time, even though I really, like Tupac and Ice Cube. I really do like Method Man, Redman, the RZA, all those guys. And then Outkast, T.I., Goody Mob, a lot of the Atlanta stuff that was going on in the 90s, because it was just different. It was such a distinct flavor. And then I got into like No Limit and Cash Money, which were the New Orleans, Louisiana based record labels, and they had some really good stuff. And even like Snoop Dogg signed with No Limit for a little bit. Like a lot of people went through that little period of hip hop. And then lately, I love Run the Jewels. I think they're really good, and actually, they've got a collaboration with Zach De La Rocha, and it is so badass. It's so good. Let me share the link. And they're touring together as well. Close Your Eyes and Count to Fuck. That's the name of the song. Let's see. London Grammar. Yes, I did, Daryl. I really like that. I thought that was super cool. There is a concert called Hellfest. It's funny, Julio brought up the movie Hellfest earlier. There's a festival going on June 17th through the 19th of 2022. And if you love metal, you've got to see this lineup. And it's actually reminding me of a bunch of bands that I really like that I didn't think about. I just want to see the lineup. Okay, here we go. You guys think about all this new OBS stuff? It takes a second. It's like I'm producing as I go. And that can be a little challenging to continue to have decent conversations. But I'm really happy with the way that it's turning out. Let's see. All right, here we go. Brooklyn Vegan. What? Because there are a lot of literally my favorite bands on here. Metallica. Who doesn't love Metallica, Metallica's really good. Pull up the chat real quick. Right. I don't know why I pulled that up for you guys. Hellfest. Okay, Metallica, Nine Inch Nails, Faith No More, Deftones. So far, Nine Inch Nails, Faith No More, Deftones, 3 of my all-time favorite bands. Judas Priest, Guns N' Roses, fucking Guns N' Roses, dude. Deep Purple, Scorpions, Alice Cooper, Megadeth, Korn, Converge, Blood Moon, Halloween, Hatebreed, Ministry, Whitesnake, Dropkick Murphys, love the Dropkick Murphys, Suicidal Tendencies, Social Distortion, love Social Distortion, Rise Against, Bad Religion, love Bad Religion, The Exploited, Hatebreed, The Offspring, love Offspring, Opeth, Mastodon, Down, don't know who Down is. Oh yeah, I do. That was another one of somebody's side projects. Dude, who is the singer of Down, or who is in Down? You guys let me know. Is it another one of Corey Taylor's bands? Is it his other one? It's not Slipknot, and it's not Looking at You Through the Glass. Don't know how much time has passed. Oh, Stone Sour. Not them. I think it's their other band, but I might be mistaken. Skinny Puppy, one of my favorite acts. Killing Joke, The Distillers, Health Creator, Youth of Today, I thought that said Slipknot, it definitely didn't. Just kind of scrolling through a little bit further. Yeah, the fact that Nine Inch Nails and Skinny Puppy are both playing on the same day, I think it's a Friday night, is insane. I mean, some other stuff. I don't really know a lot of this shit down at the bottom. But Sepultura, definitely know them. Gate Creeper. Those damn great Gate Creepers. Mayhem. There's even more bands that are going to be added. Yeah, that shit is wild, dude. That would be a concert too. That would be a once in a lifetime kind of thing. My buddy Dan hit me up and he was like, "Let's go." Oh, Down was the singer of Pantera. That's right. Damn, Patrick, you do know a lot of that stuff. Let's see, Random Andy's channel. How do you do that in OBS? I have it, and I always wondered how the heck people get vids out so quick. I'll talk to you about it anytime, man. You just gotta hit me up, and we will discuss. I'll try to help you with anything I can. Also, if you know Nick from the Distract, he knows a lot as well. He actually showed me quite a bit of it. I know the fundamentals. There's little things like I want to add super chats to the side here and subscribers, like interactive chat stuff going on the window, because right now everything's pretty static. If I had my ideal setup would be if that grid was moving in the background. I'm thinking about playing some really quiet synthwave in the background. I don't know if you guys have thoughts or feelings on that. I know people hate it when the music's too loud. So let me know. And Andy, I don't know if you use OBS Studio or if you're using Streamlabs. For the longest time, I was using Streamlabs. I started out on just regular OBS Studio, and I've went back to OBS Studio since then. I think there's a lot more ability to integrate third-party stuff into it. So yeah, not to get too inside baseball, but it's fantastic. And when you say getting out videos fast, I mean, if I'm doing anything in OBS, I'm just streaming it live, so there's nothing to be done in post. However, for regular videos, I might use my webcam to capture, but then I go into Adobe Premiere and edit everything. So that doesn't, OBS doesn't streamline that process. But as far as streaming live, like, this is what I love. Like, I would love to just be a streamer, because talking to you guys is what I enjoy so much. I love public speaking. I don't know if you guys knew that about me. That's why I do Pensacon year after year and moderate panels and host the film festival and stuff. I really do love sharing my passion of stuff. And sometimes I think that can come off as a little bit like, oh, you're a fucking know-it-all. But it's not the case. I'm just enthusiastic about sharing stuff. That Loki episode 3, very divisive episode, turns out. I thought that it was pretty objective that the green screen didn't look all that good. Not green screen, excuse me, the rear projection, because they're using the same technology as Mandalorian. So I thought that it looked objectively pretty cheap, but people were like, "You're wrong," and I was like, "All right, I guess I'm wrong. I think what you think. I think you're right." Random Andy's channel. I have OBS to record vids, but I don't know if I have OBS Studio. You do. That's the one. You're right. That's exactly what it is. I got OBS 2.6.1 64-bit Windows. And here's the tour real quick. Got that for sharing the windows. Got that for when I have guests. Look how green that camera is. Holy shit, that one looks like ass. 2 guests with a browser in the middle. That'll be used on the Movies Are Terrible live stream. Caleb over here, whatever we're watching in the middle. 3 guests. This was going to be me, Julio, Chris over there. And then the post roll at the end. That's pretty much the scenes that I have set up. Random Andy's channel, I don't get the hate for it. I love the dialogue heavy driven episode, so good, and the one take at the end was great. And then Patrick McCabe, I thought Loki was great. You can tell it isn't $200 million per episode, though. Well, I mean, how much is Mandalorian an episode? I don't know. I'm at like 20 million. That shit looks super, super good. And everything else in Loki so far has looked impeccable. One of the biggest issues that I had with this episode is when those things were flying and then the dust particles hit up off the ground. It just looked like a simple After Effects plugin. And then when they got to that like RV thing where they opened the door and the lady's got the gun, she's like, "What are y'all doing here?" I'm like, that's an offensive Southern accent, lady. And then she shoots the person. But that whole like RV thing that she was in, fake. The tents that they were in when they were fighting at the beginning, fake. And it's fine. It's not the end all be all, because I agree with you, Andy. The dialogue stuff and the character work in it, I thought was fantastic. I'm just criticizing the fucking VFX. It's like there's so many different elements of a movie that are all working in harmony to create the end product. And I feel like I do this out of a love for the craft, not to diminish it or disrespect it, but you're like, why are you criticizing it? Well, because otherwise I'm just shilling for it, right? Like if all I ever do is talk about how great the great shit is. Oh, what's up? Christopher Branch joined the chat. What's up, buddy? Glad you could stop by for a little bit. Ibrahima, the majority of the visuals were decent in episode 3, but there's definitely some scenes in there that looked wonky. I agree with you. Yes, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There were certainly scenes and shots that looked fantastic. You guys heard me talk about how much I love the Halloween trailer that just now came out, Halloween Kills. There's a scene where Michael is walking out of the fire and he's holding that like little pick thing that looks badass. And then the next shot, it's just his bust and he's walking away from the fire and the fire is behind him. The key job is shitty and the lighting in front of his face, he would be completely silhouetted out. So they might have went in and just kind of color corrected his face or brought up the color there, but it looks super fucking fake. And I was like, that's a nasty shot. And then it's followed and preceded by 100 great shots. You know what I mean? So I try to just be as objective as possible and be like, yeah, I'm a fan of this stuff. And I will always be a fan of this stuff, despite the fact that sometimes some of the shit doesn't work perfectly, you know? Northern Crusaders. Hey, Jeremy, I heard you talk about the new Harley Quinn animated show recently, and I checked it out. It's awesome. Thanks for the recommendation. I'm glad to hear that, man. I am actually rewatching the Harley Quinn animated series right now. And people will be like, dude, you're a DC hater. You criticize DC and you never criticize Marvel. And I'm like, you don't watch me. You don't even know what that is clearly somebody who doesn't watch me, because I pretty much shit on everything a little bit, you know? And I definitely have criticized Marvel. I get in trouble for that too. Dude, why are you always criticizing Marvel? So you can't win with everybody, and that's okay. But the DC animated Harley Quinn show is fucking fantastic. It's one of my favorite animated series to come out in a while. I might say it's my favorite animated series that's come out in the past 5 years, you know? Like, it's that good. I have a lot of fun with that, so. Patrick McCabe, and as much as I love the D+ shows, we're all watching it on a small-ish TV. Yes. Relatively small. My wife and I last year, we went out and we got a TV because of how much I do like to consume this kind of content. And dude, I got a 65-inch TV for like $500 or something, which is crazy cheap. It was a little more than that, and then the sound bar, but like for $1,000, you can get a crazy home theater. And it's still, I have buddies that watch the stuff on the laptop, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? Just gonna disrespect the movie like that? You fucking Marvel hater? King of the Hills 34, you're a DC hater. Correct. That is correct. Ibrahima, do you know that reference? That is correct. The last episode of WandaVision also had some wonky VFX. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. When they started flying around in the sky, and the environment's 100% artificial, you just can't help but notice it. Like, I'd rather not notice it and be like, oh, that looks natural to me. But yeah, there's and if you like use After Effects at all, there's so many apps now where like, you know, you can emulate a meteor falling down and shattering through the pavement in the middle of a street. It creates the hole and stuff for you. And I think that studios just have a bunch of templates now where they're just like, all right, we need a little plasma shit coming out of somebody's hand. Pull up the plasma shit plug-in, you know? Yes, Patrick McKay, we got it from Best Buy, and it was a Black Friday deal. But, I mean, there's some really good Vizio TVs out right now. We got a Sony and a Sony soundbar, and it's not like the top-of-the-line stuff. We didn't get the 8K and the, you know, OLEDs or whatever. We just got a regular old LED TV, and it's great for all intensive purposes. So, you know, there's stuff out there. Granted, still not the same. Still not the same as being in a dark theater and surrounded by people who are all there enthusiastic to see the movie. And so a little bit later today at 4 p.m., I'm supposed to go and check out F9. Me and my friend are going to watch the new Furious movie. As you heard Julio say, it's wonky, but he had fun with it. And that's about all I expect out of these movies. I went and saw Hobbs and Shaw, and I had fun with it. Even though it should have ended before it did. We should have never went to Samoa at the end of that movie. Not because it wasn't cool, just because it's like, pick an ending, dude. That was two different set pieces for an ending. Just one or the other. We don't need both. It made the movie too long, but I enjoy the interplay between Hobbs and Shaw. I thought they were fun. Jason Statham is the shit, dude. A lot of people sleep on Jason Statham. Have you seen The Bank Job? Bank Job's really good. Christopher Branch. When everything is VFX, I just say it's magic. I don't understand magic, so it helps me get past it. I like that take, man. That's a good take. Who really understands magic? Except David Copperfield. David. Let me try that again. Except David Copperfield. He understands real magic. I saw David Copperfield one time. No, I saw him perform maybe like 2005, 2010. Right around the same time I saw George Carlin right before he passed away. That was pretty legendary as well. I don't know how, this is from Ibrahima. I don't know how to word this, but as of now, I feel as though the Loki theories have been quaint compared to the WandaVision theories. I think he said it wonderfully. I get what you're saying. The WandaVision theories got so out of control that they almost took on a life of their own, to where audiences started to impose their expectations onto the film, onto the series. And then when it didn't do the thing that they thought or wanted it to do, they were incredibly. There was almost vitriol about it. Like, man, fucking. Where's Mephisto? Oh man, Mephisto and Reed Richards weren't even in it. Fuck this show. And it's like, nobody ever said they were gonna be in it, dude. If you listen to the Paul Bettany thing where he's like, oh, there's an actor that I work with who I just always wanted to work with, you can tell it's a joke. He's setting up the thing. Like, his tone of voice and everything about it is like, no, dude, Luke Skywalker is not showing up at the end of this show. Just calm the fuck down. Yes, I did. He was so old, Patrick. It was almost sad. He was probably, 80 when I saw him. For women, 80 ain't all that old, I found. Especially in the, you know what I'm saying? Just kidding. But an 80-year-old man, that's a long life. And when he was doing his jokes, he was like reading them off of, like a notepad or something, you know, because I think his memory wasn't quite what it was before. Plus, he was probably working on new material. I think comics do that a lot, especially if you go see him at like the Belly Room or the Comedy Store or something like that. A lot of times they'll go to practice new jokes. But I saw him at a theater. It wasn't like a little bottle club or something like that. So you'd think he was probably doing material that he had done before, but still, he was on point, dude. He made fun of NASCAR, which you don't fucking do on the Gulf Coast. I think it's whack. I'll make fun of it all day. But he made fun of NASCAR, and the audience started booing him. And George Carlin, the consummate professional, this dude deals with hecklers professionally, and he shut it the fuck down. He was so just concise. His words were cutting, and instead of everybody getting silenced in a way that they were like, oh, fuck, this isn't fun anymore, they just erupted into laughter. You know, he's just not having any of it, and it was one of the best ways I've ever seen a comedian deal with hecklers. I'm also really big into comedy. The majority of the podcasts that I listen to are not movie related. The majority of the podcasts that I listen to are, you know, by those LA comics like Tiger Belly, Bad Friends. Of course, I listen to a little JRE, but since they moved to Spotify, not as much. But Bad Friends is by far my favorite podcast right now. I listen to a little Two Bears in One Cave, Your Mom's House. There's Trash Tuesday, which is Annie Letterman, Kalila Kuhn, and Esther Pavitsky, something like that. Super funny. It's only like fully female panel podcast that I listen to, but it's great. So yeah, I really like comedy. I've definitely been invested in comedy for a very long time. Oh wow, King of the Hills 34. Bo was a very good was a good heckler handler when he was touring. Did you see Bo Burnham? That's really cool. Wait a second. Patrick McCabe, are you kidding me? The Shang-Chi trailer showed Abomination and Fing Fang Foom in it? What the fuck? I gotta do a reaction to that. I mean, I got to do a reaction to that. I'm excited to see that they're bringing back Abomination. You know, that's awesome. That's awesome, King of the Hills 34. Would love to see Bo Burnham. What I like about Kevin Feige is that instead of like abandoning shit that people don't like about previous movies, he's just like, oh, you didn't like what's a good example? Thor: The Dark World? Well, now after Endgame, it's like one of the most important movies in the franchise. There have been so many critiques that have been addressed in a way that I think is cool, but Kevin Feige never runs from it, because Abomination, if you ask around, Abomination's from one of the weakest of the MCU movies, which it totally is. I mean, there's no debating the fact that The Incredible Hulk is not the best of the MCU movies. You might love it, but it's not the most beloved, you know? So that's cool they're bringing him back. I watched Pulp Fiction last night, as I mentioned a little bit ago. Tim Roth is Honey Bunny in it. And I thought he was pretty cool as the Abomination. I didn't hate it. But yeah, I like that they're bringing these crazy-ass characters. Random Andy's channel, that is how I kill my monetization, unfortunately. Tim Roth will be a regular on the upcoming She-Hulk D+ show. What's up, Mark? Thanks for coming by, man. I did not know that. I'm curious about the She-Hulk show. I think it's going to be a little Deadpool-esque, like self-referential. I don't know, though. I don't know much about it. I know the comic books have been pretty comedic at different times. Matter of fact, I heard that secondhand, too. I don't know a whole lot about comics, and that's okay, because I know a bit about movies. I know that they're terrible. Is this the note that I'm going to end it on, man? Is this the note that I'm going to end it on? I'm very excited about watching that Shang-Chi trailer. Christopher Branch, when I rewatched Thor 2, it was when I did the MCU chronologically, and it hit different. I low-key like it a lot now. Appreciate the comment, Chris. Don't appreciate the low-key joke. I mean, I appreciate it. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty good. I'm surprised more people hadn't made it. I made it the other day. I was like, low-key is low-key, not Loki. And I don't think how are you supposed to differentiate unless it's written, you know? Anyways, Random Andy's channel. If you do a reaction to the trailer and don't get claimed, then I doubt you'll get claimed if you do it live. Okay, so Andy, if you go and you watch my last 2 trailer reactions, you're going to see this thing that I do. It's all in the edit, though. I cut back and forth between the single cam and the reaction itself, and every 10 seconds, I chop a piece of it. Thank you, King of the Hills 34. $4.99 super chat. I haven't tipped in a while. Very much appreciated. No expectation, as I say all the time, but it really does help. Next on the agenda as far as upgrades is, and I've said it a couple times, the camera. I've got to figure out a way to get rid of a lot of the noise that pops up regardless of if I'm recording on a webcam. It's just this low light situation has kind of changed the way my cameras react to it. So if you want to know what your money's going to, everybody, if you're considering supporting the channel, it is going to buying a Sony a6000 mirrorless camera. It seems like a pretty good camera. So hopefully it is. Hopefully it gives me that YouTube look where you're like, ooh, that is clean, baby. Because my videos are always got a little bit of, they're just not as polished as I want them to be, man. But yes, so I figured out a way. I cracked the code. So many people do reaction videos and they get them demonetized. My Halloween Kills is monetized. I can, get AdSense off of it. Candyman, no, they flagged me for that one. So it's a difficult balancing act, but I've kind of found a way to do it. Yeah, man. I got more concurrent viewers now than I have all morning. I gotta keep it going for just a little bit longer. Let's do this. Let's go. What else is going on in the world of movie and entertainment news? Thank you guys for stopping by. Even if you're not in the live chat right now and you are checking this out, I really appreciate you stopping by to be a part of the conversation. The Forever Purge. I saw a trailer for that the other day, and I thought it was a pretty damn good trailer because they are changing the franchise and taking it in a direction where fuck the night of the Purge. This is what it is now. So, it's the people taking the power back from these oppressors. And, the thing about the Purge is almost every one of their trailers has been phenomenal. Almost every Purge trailer that I've seen, I was like, man, this is going to be good. What a great premise. And then I see the movie and I'm like, man, they really fumbled with that, didn't they? I think their second Purge is probably my favorite. Is it called Purge Anarchy? I don't know. There's a bunch of them at this point. It's another one of those franchises they're just gonna keep on doing. But the Forever Purge looks pretty cool. We've talked about Candyman. There's a new escape room coming out, which I haven't seen the original escape room, and I'm eager to check it out. I saw somebody mention Don't Breathe 2 earlier in the stream, and I am definitely looking forward to that one. I thought the original Don't Breathe was pretty damn classic. There's a new Scream coming out, and then Halloween Ends 2022. So it closes out the new Halloween trilogy. And depending on how Halloween Kills is, this might be the best Halloween arc since the original film, What the cat dragged in. Let's see what I got here. Check that out later. But yeah, man. A lot of good stuff coming out. They put Morbius in the horror movie category. Not so sure I agree with that. But I'm curious about the new Scream movie, even though I really like the first Scream, one of my favorite horror movies. I kind of like the second Scream, and I could give a fuck about the third and fourth one. It's just kind of like that, It gets to be like, okay, you're kind of just doing the same thing over and over again. Toxic Avenger, bro. Yeah, that's going to be good. Christopher Branch, I did not watch the show on USA, but I have heard it was pretty good. Toxic Avenger, man, they cast Peter Dinklage to play Toxie, which is fantastic. And then the villains that they cast were pretty good. As well. I can't remember who I just now saw signed up for it. But it's shaping up to be a cool cast, and I hope James Gunn has something to do with it. Because James Gunn did work for Troma way back in the day. Elijah Wood is in it. Julia Davis. Jacob Tremblay. This cast is getting stacked, dude. Kevin Bacon is playing the villain in it. I'll be honest, I don't know who Julia Davis is though, but that's cool. They're adding some talent to it. She was probably in the original Toxic Avenger. If I scroll back. Wow, there's a TV series called Dr. Terrible's House of Horrible. I'll be damned. I'll be damned. Congrats, man. Congrats, Brad. That's exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. Super happy for you guys. Super happy for you guys. All right. Well, I guess that about ends it, guys. Toxic Avenger looks like they are stacking the cast with bigger and bigger names. Yes. Yes, it does. To give it credibility, which is so funny because the original Toxic Avenger is just such a low budget exploitation movie, you know? Grindhouse as fuck. And all the Troma stuff was Lloyd Kaufman is a genius, and his whole brand of movie making was very punk rock, very influenced by what John Waters was doing with like Pink Flamingos and some of his weirder stuff that was coming out, you know, at that time. Then Roger Corman, you know, was kind of the granddaddy of the tons of B movies just getting cranked out. Like, if you put tits and gore in it, people are going to watch it. That's it. They cracked the code to horror movies back in the day. Nowadays, people just don't appreciate nudity the way that they used to, you know? Kind of a shame. Kind of a shame. All right, y'all. Thank you very much for stopping by. That's where I'm going to end it. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor while you're here. Take a second to click that little thumbs up button. It really helps. Really helps the channel out. See, I got 8 likes and 12 concurrent viewers. You guys help me out. Make that shit equal. And I will appreciate you. If you want to stay up to date with all of the terrible content, all you got to do is click that subscribe button. Or you can now join and be a part of the community. Show your support that way with exclusive emojis and badges. And if you want to support me on Patreon, that's Movies Are Terrible. I'll post a link for all this shit down in the description. That way you don't have to act like you got to try to remember it. But anyways, thank you all very much for stopping by on this fine Saturday. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Jeremy, and until the next video, be terrible.